first show. It's fine. It's Jordan Klein's first show. Just trash. Absolute trash. Love you.
Hey, happy Sunday. Welcome to the Deeper Dive. We appreciate you hanging with us. That's Eric Lindquist. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's a sharp, and he's here to hang with us for the next hour. And guess what? Jordan's producing. So if you didn't know that, now you do. Yahoo is here presenting everything, so blame them for what's about to happen over the next 60 minutes. The good news is that you have 2 hours of content, the deep dive, and then, of course, live before lock, right up until this 5-game slate. What's happening, man?
Oh, just my wife was on her way with our dog to go lunch to have a bunch of her friends meet the puppy, before he gets too big and he becomes a lug to bring around. You're going to need 2 people to watch this guy very, very soon. He's already getting up there in weight and size and all of that stuff. Well, he decided to throw up on the way, just completely all over my wife's new car. He's not feeling too well. We gave him a bath. We were doing that. I put on the strategy show and listened to that a little bit while I was trying to give him a bath and listen to a little bit of that just to kind of get up to speed on some stuff. But I think we got a really fun 5-gamer. If this was like an 8 or a 9-gamer, maybe I'd call out to the pen for some relief here. But I think we're ready to rock here. And I feel pretty well prepared, as much as I can be under the situation.
Good. Now, look, if you need any type of emotional support, not only myself and Jordan, but the chat.
Yeah, you're a real emotional support kind of individual, Eytan. That's exactly what I expect from you.
I did bring up Jordan in the chat, to be fair. It wasn't just me. Good. It wasn't like I was just leaving myself out here.
The dude. So here's the thing, too. I will say, you came in. Your guns are blazing. We're ready to go here on this show. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 58 minutes, but I'm excited to find out because, I was kind of like, oh, this is just a bummer. Everything was kind of down earlier.
Yeah.
Up, and now I'm invigorated. I'm ready to see what happens. What happens live.
The only thing I had as far as an issue was because you were going through with the pup now, and this is definitely an emotional day you were not prepared for. I was a little hesitant to open up the show talking about the God, the 3-point Lord, Patrick Beverley coming through. You think I would forget that? You think I would forget?
No. So I've decided I know the TikTok that I'm going to do. Okay. Because I have to do a TikTok dance for the people who don't know. I'm definitely going to do the crying girl. I'm going to do the TikTok from the crying girl. It's going to be too good. I'll post it whenever it happens here. But congratulations on Patrick Beverley's lovely 2 for 7 night from 3 that brings down his 3-point shooting on the season to 33%. What a garbage.
First quarter hit.
And he missed his next 5. It was so annoying. It was so annoying to watch.
See, that's my world, right? Your world is like you need the full game from him. I'm just giving you the 3-point props for Bev. All right, man.
As soon as Anthony Edwards got ruled out, I knew I was dead, by the way.
Yes, see, that's the thing. I'm not here to gloat. I'm not a gloater, all right? I'm bloated, but I'm not a gloater, okay? So let's look at the Jazz, all right? Let's jump into it here, all right? Let's look at the Jazz. Jordan Clarkson right there at the top. You've got Forrest as well. You've got a couple of guys, Mitchell up there. So on our projections, these are guys that a lot of people are getting to. Jordan Clarkson at 5K is a really good opportunity. Look, the Thunder are trash. You're not going to have Gideon Dort still. So it's going to be a really easy team to blow the hell out unless the Jazz just fall into some human nature and kind of get a little sluggish here. But as far as where the field is, I don't know where you are with those top 3 guys. You can even add Gobert, who's like 10th overall as far as our projected ownership is concerned on DK at least. But you've got a bunch of guys that are heavily rostered so far on Utah. Where are you kind of to the field?
Yeah, so we've seen this situation a lot where Jordan Clarkson in relief of Mike Conley, and he ends up being popular. And I'm surprised he's not more popular because Joe Ingles is no longer in town. I mean, they traded him, salary dumped him to Portland, if you will, is probably the right way of putting it. But Jordan Clarkson, 23.9% usage here. It's hard to know exactly what you're looking at in terms of minutes. He comes off the bench here, but it's almost always been in relief efforts, kind of projecting him more around 30, which gets him at 5K to just a supreme kind of spot. He's over a fantasy point per minute under those circumstances, 0.97 for the season. I haven't projected at 31 fantasy points, which is well north of 6X. And on this slate, that is a nifty number. Having the ability to roster him at a shooting guard spot over on DraftKings, where I'm playing a little bit more here today, mean, it checks all the boxes as a really solid play. I always get a little worried because, especially over on FanDuel 4,900 with that same flexibility, I always get worried that he's going to be rostered a little bit more than what we're projecting out in these kind of spots because he's just such a no-brainer. But it feels like because of some of the other options that exist on the slate, Desmond Bane we'll get to, Alec Burks that exist here, you might actually see some reduced ownership. So Jordan Clarkson, I know not the best play in terms of leverage in the boom bust tool, but no doubt about it, a phenomenal play on today's slate.
I love it too. And you lay out as far as just opportunity here as well. So from him and that price point, clearly, and look, they're 5 games, so we're not looking for a ton of opportunities. If you can counter the field, that's fantastic, but you are going to play a couple of guys here, especially at a cheaper price. But as far as the top 2 guys in Mitchell and Gobert, and again, these aren't necessarily spend ups when we talk about other guys, at least with Mitchell, where you have opportunities elsewhere, but are you looking at least over the field to being Mitchell? Mitchell, we have a 22%, Gobert at 19%. And again, there are some other players we can get to at least at the 5 spot, but Gobert may be a top option outside of Jokic, depending on what's going on with him.
The nice thing about Gobert too is that you're basically getting flat leverage. His ownership is matching up with his optimal rate. So I'm feeling a little bit more enticed to go his direction than Donovan Mitchell. 9,300 Donovan Mitchell. We're starting to get up there a little bit. And yeah, there's obviously no Mike Conley and he sees a bump in those kind of circumstances, but I don't know if I want to be going nuts. I really think that there's just better spots to kind of be looking at using that money. I mean, Nikola Jokic priority, no matter what that salary ends up being. John Morant, Shea, I'm projecting out a little bit better than him as well. So for me, Donovan Mitchell at 9,300, he fits into a decent number of builds, but it feels like he's a little bit overowned on DraftKings at 22%. So Gobert, you're not really seeing that. So I'm seeing pretty flat, his ownership and lineup optimal appearance rate, both 19%. That's going to work out a lot nicer. You can play 2 centers over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you're really kind of you're running into a spot where Gobert's unavoidable at 8,400. I think you need to prioritize him, even with Jokic there. I mean, for me, center is very straightforward on FanDuel today. Looking at Jokic, playing a lot of him sub 11K, that just makes no sense that his tag is there. And sure, the Pelicans have playing unbelievable basketball here of late. The CJ McCollum trade is working out way better than anybody anticipated, except for Rinpack, of course, because he's sharp like that. But Rudy Gobert, 8,400 over there. My favorite center play, even including Jokic, if you need that salary relief.
So here's the thing. Are you not concerned? 13.5 point line here. And that total is only at 221. I know it's a higher number. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really leave much room for the Thunder to be doing a lot, assuming that the Jazz are going to be scoring points here. Again, you could always look at the counter, not to say that the Thunder would win, but even cover. I know that's going to be a stretch down a couple of guys, but it's not so much that, I get it. Guys on the Jazz have to be playing well in order to be up by 30 at the half, but doesn't that also narrow the window to where you may only have Mitchell? You may only have one guy who really gets hot, and then all of a sudden you're in blowout mode, just get the hell out of OKC mode.
Yeah, you're definitely running into some of that. And Oklahoma City is no doubt a good matchup, but in terms of pace, they're only 11th in the NBA. Oklahoma City is who I'm speaking of, 11th. So just barely outside of the top 10 there. And in terms of defensive rating, I don't think people are aware that they're a lot better than you would expect. 109.3, that puts them at 10th in terms of defensive rating. Course, offensive rating, not exactly very good. And that's why they're as bad of a basketball team as what they are, is they just can't put up points. Dead last in terms of offensive efficiency. So as much of a good spot as it is in order to win the game, talking about that 13-point spread, you're only seeing a 221 total there for a reason. So I think there is a little bit of risk that you have there, but I think if you start running into the game where you're trying to predict it, you've got that for Memphis and Houston. 40% of the games here on this slate have blowout risk with the 2 specific teams. So 20%. I find it to be something that I kind of don't want to overreact to. I'm going to get to some shares still of Donovan Mitchell in 150. I'm still going to get to some of those guys, just not nearly as big of priorities as they might be on other slates.
So let's look at the Thunder then a little more. And I know we have, as far as a couple of value plays here, and the field is definitely getting to that. So, Trey Mann is popping up right there at the top, at least for the Thunder, as far as players are concerned. And right above him is Baisley. So you find yourself at least 17, kind of that mid percentage. You're not really losing any leverage here by getting at either one of these guys. 5,200 on DK for Baisley. You do have at least that flexibility with Mann to run him at the 1 or the 2 on DK. So I just don't know how appealing anybody is on this team. I understand that there's going to be, some usage here, Eric, but also just the fact that this team could be smashed into the ground so quickly.
Yeah, but if they're not, it's got to be Shea. So I kind of want to start with him all the time. SGA is a monster, and
he's at the bottom of our list.
What was that?
He's at the bottom. He's at like 12, 10, 11%. That's the thing. So you're already gaining leverage.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely some leverage to be had. And again, if you're going to be rostering, if you're going to hand build out some lineups with 2 or 3 Utah guys, it makes a lot of sense to have SGA be a part of it on the other side. Him and Donovan Mitchell. Not that I'm ever correlating NBA lineups. It's not something that I think about too frequently, but it's a little extra bonus if you're putting them together that way. SGA with Josh Giddey off the floor this season, 36% usage rate. We know the kind of ability he has as a ball handler as well here. That assist rate, 33.6% in the absence of Josh Giddey. And then the rebound rate is just something that it just sends him to another stratosphere. Yeah, he's failed to reach double-digit rebounds now since the 13th of January. So in terms of triple-double risk, not really there because of the rebound rate, but he does everything offensively in terms of creating, in terms of the pick and roll. And sure, Darius Bazley and Isaiah Roby, not the best 2-man tandem of pick and roll partners for SGA, but I'm still pretty sure that he's going to get there if this game stays remotely competitive. So you're getting a little bit of an ownership decrease from what we've seen the last few slates for sure on him. He's over 10K over on FanDuel now, but still around 20%. I think when you start comparing him to John Morant, who I expect to be twice as popular, nearly twice as popular over on FanDuel, I don't know how you don't try to get to some SGA, especially with that extra shooting guard eligibility over there. So he's a guy that I'm trying to make room for a lot in tournaments.
Look, if you like this game as closer than the spread long enough, right, that it matters, not that, Utah pulls away with 3 minutes to go in the first half, but if you like this game to be tight, you can get 37.5 PRA for SGA. Now you'll lay a little bit, minus 120 or so, but there's just no way. I mean, he'll be at the 28, 30 points if this game is close because of what he's doing. You add the 5 to 7 boards or assists, depending on which one has a little more weight. I feel like if you are looking at this, not even from an OKC cover ultimately, because who knows what the hell happens at the end, but you mentioned it. If you like the game to be close, that might be a way to target it at the book.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's what you're trying to do.
You'd let me know otherwise, right?
Yeah, I think I would, Eytan. I think we've reached that point where I would tell you if I disagree with things because I have no problem doing it. Fortunately, there's been this a little bit of a mind meld as time has come along, especially, being able to partake in your radio show, which is a lot of fun to do. Definitely check that out. Check out my friend over there on The Gambler on Fox. Really enjoyable stuff. But
that's fine. That's fine. I don't want to get in trouble for promoting a different
That's
place,
why I did it for you, son. So yeah, I'll take the heat for it there. But I think that is definitely something. Small bits of correlation are never a bad thing in terms of putting your bets together. So I'm not saying that it's not something to totally disregard. I'm just saying in the long run, I find it to be negligible when you're talking about DFS, but in the sports betting world, absolutely, because if you have something that's correlated, it just makes sense to have extra outs that encompass both sides of it.
How about this super chat here from Errol? You guys are awesome. I was able to secure a 100K victory on DK with only one entry. Keep doing what you're doing. My goodness, that is fantastic. We need that in the HOF, right?
Dude, Errol, congratulations. That's as good as it gets. 100K. I was going to say my first 100K day, I had 2 entries and I was golfing during it. So you never know when it's going to happen or how it strikes. But I was definitely a member of Awesemo those years ago and changed my life completely. So I will say you never know how it's going to happen. Just be thankful that it did. Keep it rolling and congratulations.
Look, just don't make any of those Drake bets, and you'll be good, man. You'll keep your money. All right.
Oh, hey, God. If you're getting free roll Drake bets, come on now. He's getting free rolled. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, because they know they're losers. All right, so let's keep it moving here. Nobody else in the Thunder, right? Bazley, man.
No, you got to talk about other guys. I mean, there's 2 other sides of this. So we legitimately have, as long as you've had Dort out here, there's been extra production somewhere. It's just really hard to prioritize anybody when it's around that 5K number. Everybody kind of blends together. You have Darius Bazley, Trey Mann, both too expensive, but garnering a little bit of attention on DK. I'm probably going to be a little bit lower on both of them. Neither of them grading out particularly well in our projections today. I would say Isaiah Roby's tough because he's center only as well at 5,400, even though we've seen some massive upside games of him of late, even in blowouts. They lose by 37 to Minnesota. What does he do? Puts up 41.5 because he puts up 21-10. He's doing stuff like that. So I think he's all right to have, but you got to think about the opportunity cost of the position. And that's Jokic, that's Gobert, that's, some other guys that we'll get to a little bit later, maybe one in particular from Cleveland. So we have a number of guys that I'm feeling a little bit more inclined to be going towards.
All right. So we can move on then to Memphis.
Yeah. Well, one last shout out, because on the Utah side, we kind of flew through it a little bit, but I think that if you're going to talk blowout and you're going to talk, some of the guys are going to be popular that could possibly see some extra run. I think that's why we're seeing Trent Forrest at 3,100. He's very popular, 27.8%.
Right at the top.
I kind of have to bring that up just because it's inherent that he's going to see minutes in this kind of a situation. He'd been playing mid-20s minutes when Ingles had went out at the beginning of the month, or when he got traded, should I say, he tore his ACL and then got traded. But Trent Forrest, 3,100. If you absolutely need to be landing there, so be it. But I'm going to try my best to be way under the field on that. I think we just have better value on this slate.
All right. So Memphis right now, two guys popping in right there at the top, Bane and Melton. And, you're dealing with only Forrest and Clarkson with higher rostership. So if you want to, again, you just mentioned Forrest, same slots, 2-3 for Bane, 6K. So you're spending a little bit more, but the return right there, the trusted return, at least for Bane, I think would justify that if you are going heavy or at least equal to the field. So you've got Bane. I know, look, we've got Ja and Jaren Jackson as well. So 4, of the Grizz. You even have Adams kind of hovering there as well. Basically, the majority of the field is getting to at least like 2.5 Grizzlies tonight, based on our projected rostership on DK.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, you have Bane, Melton is starting to come into the mix here. John Morant. There's Jaren Jackson Jr. This is a team that there's a lot of opportunity going up against Houston. It's the best game environment of the night here. It's a 10-point spread, but again, I'm not too worried about it. The nice thing, at least, is that both of these teams, if they were playing at home, that spread might be even a little bit more lopsided. At least Memphis and Utah are on the road in these spots. Maybe it keeps it a little bit more in check, but obviously they completely mismatch Houston. And everything I talked about for OKC in terms of their offensive rating being negative, but not exactly the worst defensive team, that does not apply when we're talking about Houston, the number one team in terms of pace, dead last in terms of defensive rating. Every box is checked for a matchup when you get Houston. It's basically the Coors Field of the NBA. It's them and the Pacers, 1-2, in whatever capacity you want to look at. So everybody becomes extremely, extremely enticing here. Desmond Bane with shooting guard, small forward eligibility becomes extremely useful on a slate like this as well. At 6K, it feels like a little bit of an overspend, but even in 24 minutes, puts up 36. He's just been a hot hand guy. And in tournaments, it's insane for me to completely undercut him. And even because he can go out and burn you for sure by having a poor shooting game. He's so scoring dependent for the most part, but the rebounding totals are starting to creep up a little bit. That's reason for a little bit more optimism here. Desmond Bane, 6K, feels like an overpay to me the more that I look at it, but there's no doubt about it that I think that he's going to fit into lineups pretty easily just due to his eligibility and positionality.
Yeah, I guess it's like, would you rather just underpay? I know that's kind of a difficult.
That's the right way of saying it. Yeah, that's
right. Would you rather underpay for Forrest, right, with the return, or overpay a little bit for Bane? You probably want to play it safer. Like, it's higher risk for Forrest, but it's safer for Bane, and you're spending a little more for that.
Yeah, it's there's a 3K difference. Trent Forrest, I think, just because he's 3,100, it's hard for guys like that to burn you, but you also have to just say you're giving up a position that goes to some of these mid-range plays. In between just these first two games we've talked about, we've had Jordan Clarkson, now Desmond Bane, DeAnthony Melton, all of them have massive type upside here. And, if this game gets lopsided, that's where you're really looking at the utility of DeAnthony Melton. I think, he's probably a little bit more popular than I would expect, considering he's got around a 23 minutes projection here at the moment. But that just kind of speaks to if this game gets wonky here. He's a 1.07 fantasy point per minute guy. Desmond Bane, just a little bit over fantasy point per minute on DraftKings as well. So both of them just fit into lineups pretty easily in this mid-range. Yep. I think that's just a pretty target-rich environment. We do have some upsides in Jokic and whomever else that I think it's actually a little bit easier to get to. And we got a little bit more news here on the other side from Houston. But both of those guys, I think it's hard to just completely say I'm going to undercut them. I'm going to probably be right around the field, I would say, on both of them.
Yeah, and I think just looking at everybody else now that you've talked about, you also have Steven Adams, who is getting surprised, and maybe I'm missing something, which is definitely possible, more likely probable, but he's catching a lot of rostership projected, at least 19% we have on DK at that center spot. And if it's just spending up a little bit more, clearly Jokic is that obvious one, but if you're spending up a little bit more for Gobert, or you're just pivoting away on a much cheaper option, I mean, hell, you even have Wood there. I get it at 8K, Valanciunas a little bit higher, and I don't know why you would be racing outside of just squeezing in an extra $800 or $900, maybe a K, why you would be racing to Steven Adams. Yeah, over those other options.
Yeah, he's the most negatively leveraged player on this team. And he's been a guy that's performed well above expectation from a fantasy perspective. But we're starting to see that that's coming back down to earth. And we've had 2 blowouts here. The Boston game, they really weren't that competitive there. And with Al Horford playing as well as he was in that spot, Robert Williams, both of them a little bit undersized centers, if you want to call them that, 4-5s. They basically ran Steven Adams off the floor there, only played 26 minutes. Then they played Orlando and blew them out of the water, only played 23 minutes. If he gets back to those, 30-ish minutes that we're projecting him for, 28.5 we have currently for his projection, he would definitely have some utility. And there's really no resistance if he's going to get some rebounds down low. I mean, Christian Wood sure ain't going to be guarding him to any capacity, but it's just what is the opportunity cost at the position? And it might be sounding redundant, but you've got Jokic, Pascal Siakam, Rudy Gobert, Christian Wood himself on the other side here if this game stays competitive. Jonas Valanciunas, Jared Allen, all of these guys I like more than I like clicking on Steven Adams. Sure, they're more expensive, but it's just really hard to click on him, just considering the spot and the negative leverage.
All right, before we get to Houston here, you've got 4 choices, actually 3. I'll make it quick here. Morant over 1.5 is -142. Desmond Bane over 2.5 is -184. Jackson over 1.5 is +130. Your option is putting them all together in a same game parlay or not?
So OddsShopper has, in recent games, again, I'll pull it up here now. It takes 30 seconds. That's the beautiful part about OddsShopper, is going over there and finding it. They've loved the over on 1.5 for Jaren Jackson threes. They do again today. +140 is kind of a prevailing number that exists there. 1.8 the projection. The thing about Jaren Jackson is that you're getting plus money on a situation where if he stays out of foul trouble, which feels like that's a 50-50 proposition, you're going to be running into a lot of attempts that he can have. And I get worried that attempts have been down drastically in the last few games, but there's plus money to be had here on the other side. It's a Houston team that, they'll definitely be able to stretch out up in pace. I think there might be more volume in store for Jaren Jackson Jr. in this kind of a game environment. So plus money on that, I feel pretty good about.
Yeah, it's a trap, but I'll fall into it with you. I'm not here to make a bet, but the same game parlay will be Morant over 1.5, Jackson over 1.5 at +279.
When can we undercut some of these threes? When can we undercut them? I want to bet some unders on some threes.
Why? Why would you go in betting under? Like, what about your life would want you to look at things from an under? That's a glass half empty way. You're a glass half full guy.
I'm a glass more money guy. I want more money in my glass. I want the cup overfloweth, if you will.
Stay away from unders. All right. I don't want any part of that bad, whatever wrong. You want to call it.
Wrong. I love you, but wrong.
Houston. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Now, you've got a lot of you mentioned some news here that's factoring in. You've got a lot of opportunity to capture on the pacing here for the Rockets. But again, we approach this game like we did the previous game, which is how much do you anticipate Houston getting blown the hell out of the water versus them keeping it tight?
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder just got ruled out, which just adds a little bit. It was great timing. They're right on the transition here. None of these guys are going to project out that well, but it's a 5-game slate. And if you want to try to get different in some tournaments, I think you could do worse than trying to take some shots on Jalen Green, who's starting to emerge a little bit more. Now, I'm still wrong about him. He still sucks, but Jalen Green is not going to be a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy here from now until the end of the season. That's just the way that it's going to work out. And so I think Jalen Green at 5,600, that tag is starting to rise a little bit. He's played really well of late, but that's just kind of what we were expecting. And with young guys, with rookies specifically, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt as they're feeling it out. And you're going to see more expressed upside in games. Even a guy who's a low fantasy point per minute guy like Herbert Jones, you start seeing playing a little bit of a different role, getting confident as the year goes on. And it's not really something that you can define by pure numbers, but the opportunity goes up drastically having Dennis Schroeder off the floor here. Kevin Porter Jr. as well. It's nice to see that he's been less involved here of late, and Jalen Green has been more assertive, but that's also something that you would expect out of a guy that's, a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Yep. Like that's just the way that it's supposed to work. So Jalen Green, it's feels like an overpay again at 5,600, but at 10%, I'm willing to take some shots on him. It's not the most enticing spot. I think my favorite play out of anybody to try to get a little bit different in a tournament here would be Şengün. I know Şengün's not going to ever project out well, but we saw 22 minutes, 30 fantasy points here, and he has power forward eligibility. If you wanted to try Jae'Sean Tate, who's been at a fantasy point per minute guy, I understand, but Şengün is a 1.15 fantasy point per minute player. Rinpack said repeatedly this entire season that on the NBA Slate Starter podcast we do every single night, Sunday through Thursday night, available Monday through Friday, that Şengün in the right situation is a 9-10K player if he plays 35 minutes. And I think that the fantasy point per minute rate kind of speaks to that. So if you see a wonky game environment, if you're going to have fewer Grizzlies on one side, or even if you do, because, in 3 quarters, they can get there against Houston, I think Şengün is a very contrarian guy to take some shots on.
All right. And look, I think if you're getting any type of leverage, part of me, if you're working anything against the field here, it's a great opportunity to take risks on a 5-game slate, because you may not have many of these that pop up, especially in the next 3 games. Look, it's unlike the last game, and we'll move on to the halfway point in a second here, but unlike the last game, this is a ridiculously high total. So there is plenty of room for Houston to really work and put up some points here, which favors, that's the complete opposite, right, as what we just talked about with OKC. While you may be able to identify a player and a half, but there's still concern because of how tight that total is with that large of a spread. Here, it's a little different.
Yeah. And getting Schroeder off the floor. I mean, just getting rid of those minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
great
31,
point.
38 minutes, his last 2 appearances. I mean, it was 5 days ago since he had last played, but that's a pretty large minutes allotment that you're looking at for him to be distributed elsewhere. So that's where Jalen Green really kind of sees a bump up for me. We're rerunning the projections here, obviously, and I'll kind of tweak my own stuff here as we're going, but I do expect his ownership to come up a little bit from the 10.4% number he was projected at. The possible existence of Schroeder would have completely written him off for me, but him, KPJ, Christian Wood, we know the kind of upside they can have. Do I want to be getting to any of them over 15% of my lineups? Absolutely not. Outside of maybe Jalen Green, depending on where his ownership lands, just because I feel the most confident that as the year ends, things kind of change, and there's no pressure for him to go out and play well anymore. You just kind of get to free roll him, and he's got talent. There's no question about it. He just needs to have some opportunities here. So last 3 games have been good. We keep riding that train.
All right. And really, again, just to look at where we are across the board, Wood at 21% there on Yahoo. So there may be some leverage that you can find depending on the site there. All right, let's move to our third of 5 here. Toronto on the road getting 4.5 against Cleveland. This is the tight one here, the lowest total by a little bit at 211. And again, this is going to be about trying to maximize some value here for guys that you can get on the floor, and also understanding that it's not expecting at least to be a high-scoring game, so you're really going to have to narrow the focus. Let's start with the road. I saw the chat asking if it's a Gary Trent Jr. night. Is it?
Shit, if I know. I mean, Toronto is just so annoying. This team...
I'm not playing his threes, I can tell you that.
Dude, this team... Well, I mean, what is it, 4, 5?
Well, it's 3.5.
Yeah.
I did have... Look, I got a little same-game parlay cooked up, and I got to give a shout-out to Tank on here, because he's the one who identified the over Darius Garland play. Tank the shy guy, right? Meaning Chicago guy, shy guy, right? That's how they say it in Chicago. I don't know if you know that.
I did not.
You're a Midwest guy. You don't know Chicago lingo? You have to return your South Dakota card.
Chicago is a long way from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, sir. They are not. They're not next to each other. But looking at Toronto here, it depends which site you're playing on. So on DraftKings,
okay,
I don't think we have to be getting close to a Gary Trent 6,600 number. On FanDuel, when you get the identical tag at 6,600, it becomes more intriguing. That's why you're seeing a lot more ownership going his direction. But Pascal Siakam is the guy who it's just like so difficult for me to really figure out exactly what I'm supposed to do with it. It feels like a foregone conclusion when you get Fred VanVleet off the floor that you would see some upside from him eventually. And we finally got that game, 40 minutes, 54.5 here. Getting the power forward eligibility now back on DraftKings makes him really intriguing, but 8,100 on FanDuel, 35%. He is just such a smash play over there. Going to be one of my highest owned players. I just find no way around getting to a lot of 8,100 here on this slate. Gary Trent, it's really annoying, but with the absence of Malachi Flynn now, somebody's going to have to be ball handling, and they've done a lot of starting units where it ends up being him running some point. I know we've got Banton talk that people are just firing up in the chat here constantly. I don't know if I want to be going completely nuts with it, but he is the flat min 3,500 over on FanDuel. Yeah. Power forward only is a little bit annoying. Thaddeus Young's existence and Precious Achiuwa. There's just so many different paths that this can take. My assumption is that Gary Trent is the starting point guard. That gives me a little bit more confidence and interest in going his direction on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, thank God we don't have to be going completely nuts. And Scotty Barnes is up to 7K. They just feel all a little too expensive for this slate outside of maybe trying to make Banton a thing. And we'll see really what that starting unit ends up being. Flat 3K would be really fun to roster. And he's a guy with some positive leverage here at the moment, only 9% rostership. So we're going to just
What about Yahoo? He's a total punt, $10 play as you would expect, but nobody.
He's the min everywhere. And again, I don't know why
but he's not even being like point guard, rostered on Yahoo. He's at 0.1% compared to the 9% you laid out.
Here's the thing. If he doesn't start, he won't be getting a ton of attention. Yeah, it's just going to, and I don't think he starts. And then you're really in a flux here because you would assume he has to be playing some backup point guard minutes. Again, why he's power forward on FanDuel is beside me, but you've got to probably have some interest regardless of it. Just pay close attention to the news. I think he probably sees the floor either way, but it's Nick Nurse. You'd never really know here. Malachi Flynn, it was nice for, while it lasted here. He's going to be out here for a little while, but 3 of those 4 games, you had certainty in minutes and you had smash fantasy performances. I don't know if immediately everything just automatically goes to Banton. It's a pretty large assumption to make, and trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this rotation is kind of a fool's errand. There's Svi Mykhailiuk, who last game, still played 16 minutes out of the middle of nowhere. It was a blowout, but his availability could really throw a wrench into Banton. Maybe he gets more involved. We have him projected for 9.5 minutes, and Banton, he's getting to 30 minutes, which is just an assumption, I think, of him starting. So pay attention to the starting unit. If he's in it, fire him up at will. If he's not, just be careful because it's hard for me to really know what those minutes look like.
All right. So from Trent Jr. and Siakam, you did mention, anybody else there from an angle? Scotty Barnes, 7K on DK?
Absolutely not on this slate. I love Scotty Barnes, and we've seen some really nice upside games, but 40 at 7K is really not getting it done for you here, especially if we do get a piece like Banton. Trent Forrest might start or something weird could happen there, but we have some cheapies that exist here around the industry, and you just have to know that you're still using up a roster spot there where 40 is a pretty good outcome for him there. In the event that you get all of these cheap guys available, you have Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett. I project both of them for 4+ points more than I do Scotty Barnes. It's a very tough defensive matchup. They're only projected for 103 total, 103 total here in this spot. Not the most enticing spot to try to pick on Cleveland, even though Scotty Barnes has really come on of late.
All right, so we'll hit the Cavs here now again.
Let's do it.
And I saw News God on here. We've peaked interest here on this Darius Garland prop. If the News God is taking time away from reporting on anybody who could be injured or not, hey, what was that prop again? Garland over 21.5 points. I got to give Tank a shout here on the chat. Looked at it. I like it. I'm riding, but that's just small potatoes here. We need to look at him as far as a DFS option tonight. And look, he's right there, 8,600 at the point on DK, 23%. There are only a couple of guys higher than him. The only point guard really that you can't, he's the only point guard, that you can't move. So you do have flexibility with both Melton and Clarkson, 2 cheaper guys we talked about. If you don't have any problem with the field at 23% and you do like Garland tonight, you actually have a pretty good opportunity of going, again, heavy on the field here, but to get a Garland and then / Clarkson or Melton combo.
Yeah, Garland has just been awesome. And, the situation could not be a whole lot better for him here. No Karis LeVert, obviously no Ricky Rubio, none of those guys who have been out here forever. No Colin Sexton, of course. I mean, there's just all the usage and opportunity that's sitting there for him. And he's starting to do stuff with it, which is really exciting. He's one of the reasons that Cleveland goes the way that they do. And yeah, they've got a great defensive interior, but 43 minutes, 26 points, 19 assists that we saw out of him last game. I don't know really what to make of that against a Philadelphia defense that I thought was competent, especially moving Seth Curry out of there. Their overall defense, playing Matisse Thybulle more minutes, has to improve here, but that is an amazing amount of creation, even in a loss there. So Darius Garland, if he's going to have that role going forward, and, he was on a major streak of double-doubles at the beginning of January here. He's only 2 games back here from being out for 2 weeks. And, as he starts to get ramped up, it immediately happened. 33, 43 minutes, knowing that can be on the table for him in any kind of a spot. A high 30s minutes, Darius Garland against a really leaky Toronto team here right now in its current iteration. Defensively, just not going to be looking that good going forward. No Van Vliet out there, no Malachi Flynn. There's definitely some opportunity at point if he's getting Banton and Gary Trent guarding him. It's going to be really tough to not see him succeed in this spot.
We talked about Steven Adams earlier, just as far as, why people would be at all rushing to get him at 6,100 and looking at that number where you're losing leverage to the field. Well, you're spending $1,500 more on DK. I mean, you're gaining a lot of leverage if you were to go to Jared Allen as a pivot instead of Steven Adams in this matchup, at least.
Yeah, so I love Jared Allen today. This is kind of a tournament stand that I really kind of want to make. 7,600 over on DK. He's sub 10%. We're looking at, again, Siakam, he's playing just ridiculous amount of minutes here of late. And then over on FanDuel, you have this eternal question of what you want to do with Allen, Mobley, both of them kind of hovering around there. I strongly prefer going to Allen with his power forward eligibility over Mobley here at the exact same number. Just a better fantasy point per minute producer, 1.12 compared to Mobley's 0.98. I just feel like there's more upside with the stocks and opportunity for both of them, no doubt about it. But I think Jared Allen offensively much more polished, has a bigger opportunity here with the creation and the 2-man game with Garland. I think that there could be a massive fantasy outcome here, just waiting for Jared Allen very, very soon. Hasn't put up over 43 fantasy points here in a while. I think that might be a reason that some of this rostership is a little bit depressed. I feel pretty confident in saying sub 10%, one of my favorite tournament plays, just to be over the field on here. Kind of regardless of how this center position stacks out or what other value we might have existing on this slate.
Anybody else you're rushing to get to? Are you maybe under? You're a fan of the unders. You're trying to fade my under threes. Are you under the field with a guy like Evan Mobley? He's about 14% on DK right now projected.
Yeah, we just got some news that Trent Forrest is going to be starting here for Utah. So that's
going to change things.
That's kind of, I said that was definitely something that was on the table and kind of could see that taking place here for him. And I don't know if it changes anything. Like, he still was a good play regardless. We kind of assumed that he could get that spot start. He's gotten 3 starts here on the season. 1, 2, 3. That is how you count, guys. I just did it. Yes. 3 starts here for Trent Forrest. That'll be an interesting spot because they just seem to want to bring Jordan Clarkson off the bench no matter what. Doesn't change my Clarkson interest whatsoever, but Trent Forrest definitely more serviceable, just getting a secure workload even there, even though it's a 0.68 fantasy point per minute rate, just makes it easier to try to take some shots on some of these higher priced guys. Rest of Cleveland, just to kind of round that out. I mean, I do not want to play any Cedi Osman. I think Jared Allen's really the only other guy there. I think Evan Mobley on DraftKings, where he's 6,700 as opposed to Allen 7,600. There's definitely a case to be made to try to do it, but I'm really just hunting for massive upside here because there's such a ridiculous amount of value and possibly more to come here, even for a 5-game slate. So I'm looking at getting to more Allen simply because I think that upside and that ceiling can be there. Mobley's been phenomenal. We've seen a 51 spot against Atlanta actually here of late for him as well, but I feel like the floor is just there. And considering he's around 14%, just give me Allen for the decreased ownership.
Anybody else you want to sneak in there? Kevin Love's got an interesting plus money.
I can't talk about him anymore. I don't know what to do with Kevin Love ever. He plays 18 minutes, 26, played,
all 20. I need him to do is shoot.
Yeah, well, I just need him to see the floor when I roster him. But looking at FanDuel, he's up to 5,500 now. Is there a path where if he plays 26 minutes, he could just smash a slate? Sure. but I think there's just enough top end options and then cheap floor options. We could be getting even more here at a number of positions. I do not want to be using a roster spot on a guy that has legitimate floor of 16, 18 minutes.
All right, if you want to get crazy, you can go Garland over 2.5, Love over 2.5, and that's going to get you plus 329.
That's fair.
Just make a mental note. Oh, okay, Garland's going to get there.
Oh, well, all right, is that a guarantee? Did you just throw a guarantee out?
No, I don't. I'm not going to guarantee like
you want to bet my TikTok dance? Let's double down.
See, I knew you would do this. I'm not giving up any type of leverage until you do that TikTok dance. All right. I have a winning lotto ticket, and I'm not going to cash it in until I see you do that damn dance.
I hate
whatever the hell it is.
I hate my life. It's fine. Go ahead. Keep going.
All right. Enough of this 211. Get rid of this stink total that we have that you love. You and your unders, man. Ugh.
Dude, unders. Hey. Unders need love too. No discrimination here, Squirrel.
No, they don't.
Keep your hands off my cheeks. Let me tell you how you ride the beach, you big flea. Let's go.
No. Terry's in the chat. I'll tell you on the show we do for NHA. We try to avoid those like the plague. You can't say that anymore because of COVID now, right?
I don't know. Nick Thompson, do not listen to me at 2X. That's not a good idea. Adam Scherr at 2X, though, is even scarier. If you've ever done that before, oh, baby. Look at Jordan Klein just got uncomfortable even thinking about it. It's literally like listening to a monotone chipmunk. It's like that. It's absurd.
Oh, man, that's great. Yeah, maybe that Allstate Auto Mayhem guy. We don't know. Look, we need to get him up. First and foremost, I noticed this. Hit that thumbs up button, please, and we'll tell you exactly. Eric might do the dance. He might premiere the dance in the final 5 minutes of the show if we can get to 500 likes. Is that fair?
Sure. I'll give him a sneak peek. Yeah, sure.
No, I think you could just do the dance. A premiere. This isn't a sneak preview.
Like pay off the bet at the end of the show.
Yeah, and then do it on TikTok.
I'm not technologically savvy enough to do the TikTok live while streaming live. That seems like a lot of problems. Jordan Klein already makes fun of me enough for how much I suck at TikTok. So, no.
Okay.
I'll work on it. Eytan, it's getting paid off. I'm a man of my word. Unless I can talk
I have no doubt
with me.
No, I have no doubt. And at no point was I hinting that you are a welcher in any standard or capacity. I do not believe that to be the case at all.
Bet you $20 I can get you gambling by the end of the show. No,
look, I'm just telling you. I'm not giving up any double or nothing, anything like that until I see the dance. That's all I'm saying.
All right,
that's the difference.
Fair.
All right. Now,
all right, I tried.
Pelicans. Short dog here. A lot of this had to do with some concern about Jokic earlier in the day. So let's start with the Pelicans first. And look, you've got Ingram and CJ, right? Those are the two guys that you can start with, at least. Valanciunas, we mentioned him as far as a possible pivot here for that center play. But let's just look at the two big guys with McCollum and Ingram and kind of how you are to the field.
Do people know how good CJ McCollum has been since getting acquired by New Orleans? Are they aware of how outrageous this guy is? He's been everything that you could possibly want as an acquisition. And for some reason, we're getting a salary decrease from $9K to $8,800 in this spot against Denver. As you said, a short dog on the road. I mean, it is crazy to think that they are only 4-point dogs. Thinking about New Orleans Pelicans on the road in Denver against Jokic and company, that is kind of crazy to me, but that's just how good he's been. Only 17.5% rostership. He's another guy that I'm willing to take a large stand above the field. I know Trent Forrest could get banned. A lot of cheapies that exist down there on the bottom end, but in terms of just guys that I think have some massive upside of late, they just haven't played any competitive games forever. Look at this box score the last 4 on this 4-game winning streak. One by 15 against Phoenix, one by 28 against the Lakers, one by 30 against Sacramento, and one by 34 against Utah. He has failed to close out a basketball game, to be there on like the last minute of a game here for 4 consecutive. He's been north of a 1.15 DraftKings points per minute player here, 1.1 on the season, but that's just not a sample size that matters because he is in a way better situation offensively, a team that's just going to be a better team going forward here. I don't know how you don't love CJ McCollum on this slate. Now, you talk about Trent Forrest and however many guys exist there on the top end. Shea is somebody that I still want to get to. Donovan Mitchell. I mean, you're getting 8,800 for a guy that I just think just projects out so well here in these new circumstances. If he plays that 36 minutes that he has not reached now in 4 straight games, you're looking at a massive fantasy point per minute producer. So I'm firing up a lot of CJ McCollum, and I think you should too.
I love it. And Ingram, are you feeling similar to that, or is this kind of like a one versus the other here where you're waiting on performance more on McCollum versus Ingram?
Yeah, it gets a little bit hairy let me just kind of pull up the sample size here as well, because we don't have a crazy amount of these two playing together, but we have enough to start making some conclusions that Brandon Ingram is going to see a little bit of a dock in terms of overall production. He actually leads the two in terms of usage. They've shared the court 215 minutes together. Brandon Ingram, 27.6% usage compared to CJ McCollum, 26.7%. But then you talk about all the other things that go on. 24.7% assist rate here for Brandon Ingram, 20.1% for CJ McCollum here. Rebounding rate, that's going to be, about similar for both of them. 8.5% for CJ McCollum, 8.3 for Brandon Ingram. They're both great plays, but for me, it's CJ McCollum feels like the guy who's offensively doing everything right now for this basketball team. And as time goes on here, 8,300 Brandon Ingram, he projects out decently well. He's another guy just hasn't had to get ran too much because of how well they've been playing here of late. Overall 1.15 fantasy point per minute player on the season. And you get Josh Hart off the floor, and some rebounds are going to be up for grabs. The rebound totals have been a lot higher, I think, in the absence of Josh Hart. I think they will show out to going forward just because Josh Hart can be a really good rebounding three, whether it's here, Portland, wherever else. Back to his time at the Lakers, he's just shown a proclivity to rebound the ball well. So Brandon Ingram can maybe get there, but not enough to really look at it as like a strong double-double potential. I just want to go to CJ McCollum, where I think that those assist totals are just going to keep going up and up under this circumstance.
So again, we've had Jokic kind of in the backdrop here when we talk about centers, and if it's right there with Gobert, who we mentioned right off the bat at 8,500 as a possible pivot, even Adams, who's gaining the rostership projection here on our own versus, DK and other sites. You even have like a Roby, who's a little bit higher as well. Valanciunas at 7,300. Maybe the price is pushing people off a little bit. But again, if you are looking to move away from Jokic and even to move away from Gobert, saving some money, do you like Valanciunas as that second pivot, if you will?
Not really. It's really hard for me. The ownership is low. That's a huge plus here, but there are some opportunities because of Jackson Hayes just being on the floor next to him. That rebounding rate has really come down here. And I just like Jackson Hayes and the way that he's fit as a starter for this basketball team. They've found something that works out here, but it's definitely to the detriment of Jonas Valanciunas. We've seen some massive rebounding totals from him, but offensively, it's another guy that I think can be competent, just cleaning up boards and being able to have putbacks, a little bit more effective in terms of the pick and roll. Jonas Valanciunas, it's crazy how many times you watch these games and he's sitting around the 3-point arc, just kind of waiting for stuff to happen. It's really surprising, actually, just for like a big lumbering guy that you'd expect him to be down in the post a lot more, but hasn't really been the case. Just from that's kind of an eye test thing more so, just watching a lot of Pelicans basketball. But I think on FanDuel, it's just really hard to want to take that shot where you only get to roster one center. I think we can do a lot better than that. And we've got Jokic on the other side of this game. It's too easy to get to with the all of this value we have. And then at 15% on DK, yeah, you can roster two centers. But I think 15%, whenever I think about something like that, where I just don't really see 50 in the range of outcomes for him, I'm just taking him out of my pool. And, even in large field stuff, I feel like he's one of the guys that I just write off. And if you want to get to a little, sure. But for me, it's an easier to just write off, use rest of the players at the position. And if he burns me, he burns me.
All right. So flip that, then we'll move to the other side here and look at Jokic. We'll look at Denver, 229 total. This is an attackable game. And then some. We talked about the top two guys on the Pelicans. How do you approach Jokic on the slate?
All I know is 100% Boogie worked out pretty well on Friday. Hey, everybody. How was that? That's why you listen to that extra 30 minutes on Live Before Lock. It definitely comes in some handy. No doubt about it. That was a lot of fun. Is this the
first time you've been on since?
Yeah, first time I've been on. Yeah, I have Saturdays off.
Because if you were on like three other shows and you were promoting that you continue to hit this, Jordan would have to call a violation.
Screw you. I can do what I want, okay? I do whatever the hell I want to, okay? If I want to
Come on, I'm not still pumping up that same game parlay from 3 weeks ago.
Whatever. He was 12% on FanDuel, which was egregious. I guess I didn't get to 100% there because I had a little bit of
Great call,
but I had 100%. That is the way you do it, Eytan. See, now you're learning. Well done, buddy. Yes, we're going to roster a lot of Jokic. I don't really have any concerns. It was an illness. I think he's pretty much good to go here. I saw somebody brought that up in chat. So don't overthink this. This is the best fantasy producer on planet Earth right now in his current circumstance. Things will change when you get Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray back into the mix. It'll definitely trim some upside off the top here, but projecting out for nearly 60 fantasy points, you have too much value that exists on this slate not to prioritize a guy that at his position projects out for nearly 15 more fantasy points on DraftKings than the next guy in Pascal Siakam, who, yes, does have power forward eligibility, but still you can play at that spot. And then compared to John Morant, 8 fantasy points more. I think we just have too much value that exists here now. Only 12.7%. I expect that to come up quite a bit. Sure, 12.6 is a ridiculous tag for anybody, but Nikola Jokic is definitely worth it here. With how well the Pellies have been played, I really don't have any blowout risk that exists in other games here for sure. I think you just fire up Jokic. And then on FanDuel, 10-9 is a broken tag. It is wrong. Yeah, if you want to point to the fact, he hasn't put up over 50 in the last 3 games, Eric, I really do not give a shit. Play a lot of him.
Anybody else? Well, look, Barton, there are some other guys here before we get to this final game, if you want to sneak in, but so much of this is really just your feel. Now, we talked about a bunch of these games, 3 already, about to round out on this 4th one. So beyond Jokic, if there's anybody else that you yourself find getting to, especially building some lineups, you can get some leverage with Green at a cheaper cost there. Not really much rostership. And again, Morris, these guys are all going to be super low owned.
It's so hard. And Will Barton, I'm just mad at him. I'm
out
upset
on him.
with you. I had the winners across the board on Friday if it weren't for Will Barton and the absolute floor performance that he put up. 19.6 FanDuel points in the absence of one Nikola Jokic. It could not have gotten more tilting than that. But you know what? That stuff happens from time to time, and you want to go back to the well, but not today, not in this given circumstance. I think, this would be the portion of the show when doing deeper dives that Adam would just be like, yeah, Jokic and move on. And I think that that's the right take on DraftKings. FanDuel, you can mix in some Barton. He's 5,400, Aaron Gordon, 5,200. I think both of them, I'm going to mix in a little bit there, but nothing drastic. There's really nothing else to talk about here.
All right, I'll make you a deal. There's 3:05 left in this game in Milwaukee right now. If Bobby Portis hits his 3rd 3, I will remove the need for you to do the TikTok dance. Is that all right?
Emotional free roll? Hell yeah. Eytan.
All right. I need you behind me, right? Let me say that again. I need your support. All right. Jesus. All right, 121, 120, 3:05 to go. I need a Portis 3.
I need you
to move on to the
not
next.
do that again. All right. Let's go. Let's get to this last game and please.
Hey, at least I caught myself. All right. I didn't send that.
As opposed to me who just keeps talking and then, chats pause, pause, everybody pause.
Exactly. That's worse. Me just talking through it is much worse, right?
It's all right. They went on a 30-minute conversation about zombies. I'm literally giving my dog a bath. And all I remember about this morning show, I was like, I'll get a little research in and try to. All they did was talk about zombies. That was the only thing I learned this morning. So appreciate them helping me out, helping me do my job today. Whatever.
EMac, I guess they made up. All right. Evan Fournier is the guy I want in real life. Who are you looking at here in our world?
Are we talking about the Knicks? What are we doing? What?
That's it. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go to the
You can get through the Knicks as much as you want, and then we can talk about the Clippers, and then we can get the hell out of here. How about that?
So this is a really fascinating spot going up against the Clippers. I mean, this is 2 hours after lock here, and the Knicks have been really difficult to really understand what is going to happen going forward with Grimes out, with Kemba Walker removed from the rotation, with no Derrick Rose still there. It's been wonky. And, the one thing that's nice is you're going to get a crazy amount of minutes for RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. We're back to some massive workloads here for those two guys going forward. Now, the Phoenix game, Philadelphia game, we saw a really strong performance from Mitchell Robinson. That's why you saw 37 minutes out of the middle of nowhere for him. He's going to do that from time to time, but on this slate, in this spot, don't try to get too cute and chase something like that. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes you're used to, and that is RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. That's why they're getting the most rostership, and they're just going to play a boatload of minutes. RJ Barrett, I don't think people understand, 40 and 44 minutes. If you can guarantee me 38.5 minutes, which is the highest projection we have for any player on this entire slate, he needs to be a priority in terms of build. So Yeah, he's at 22%. He doesn't project out phenomenally well, but in terms of getting a little bit different, I do like mixing him into some lineups just with that point guard, small forward eligibility, which is a little bit different. But I think that there's some interesting builds for 3-max stuff where I might be rostering him in one of those.
All right, so real quick, I did add this to the chat here. It was either Allen or Portis, so I needed that 3 from, and there's 225 on my Gamecast at least. Allen is in, Portis is out. So God. Either one, and you're in good shape, okay?
One time, Peeler, one time.
I'm giving you another opportunity. I just added another opportunity. You did.
I love you. This is more generous than I would be. By the way, Terry McBride, when did you pay off my rotating around the baseball bat 20 times before you start the show bet? I don't see that anywhere. NBA All-Star head to head.
Really?
I didn't forget, my friend. Just waiting.
Maybe
for it
we
to
could
happen.
do a 2-for-1 here. If neither Allen nor Portis is cooked, he's on the bench. So if Allen or Portis don't hit this, then maybe we can get a 2-for-1.
All right.
The Dizzy bat and the TikTok. All right.
Be nice. Be nice.
We got to go back to our guy here. This is a fantastic matchup for Reggie Jackson tonight.
Oh, God. So here's the thing. I love Reggie Jackson. He's 8,700 on DraftKings now. I cannot play Reggie Jackson at 8,700. I want to. Trust me. I've thought about it. I've thought long and hard about it today on what I want to do with this guy over there, because you look at his fantasy point per minute rate, and it is outrageous here in the absence of Norman Powell and all these other dudes that got shipped off. No Paul George and no Kawhi continuing to be out there. It just makes sense to try to mix him in, play multiple sites, and then get your exposure over on FanDuel, where 7K is just a broken tag. But on DraftKings, I was trying to find a way that I could really play him at 8,700, and I can't come up with anything. So definitely not going to be going his direction. Zubats is now up to 6,800. I don't have to think about this team almost at all outside of my boy Marcus Morris is underpriced on DK, and I know he isn't going to project out that well, but the ceiling still exists there. Kind of a guy that can land in some lineups, and I'm just fine with. Terrence Mann, I really don't want to be taking that shot, but Marcus Morris is probably the only guy that I'm going to get any type of relevant exposure to over on the DraftKings slate. On FanDuel, it just looks completely different. You play a lot of Reggie Jackson. You can mix in Marcus Morris and Terrence Mann, 5,700 and 5,800 over there, where, it's a 3,500 floor. It's a little bit different plays, but they can go so many different directions. And there are some slates where I've tried to play Hartenstein at center, even at 5,100 on DK, because when he gets that extra run, he can put up 40 like he did against Houston, which is the spot where I played him. But I don't really see it here against the Knicks. It's not the most enticing spot, even though they have 113 team total. It's just a pass on almost this entire team for me on DraftKings.
Yeah, 220.5. It's just so hard to ignore that, right? If this were down to 210, 211, then I think it would be easier to just blow by it. That's why
if you didn't have Reggie Jackson inflated to $8,700 would be great.
Yeah, that's a big point too. You're right. I mean, he drops to 8,000 or 7,900. All of a sudden, it's a completely different conversation, I would imagine.
Exactly. And so, in the context of the slate, like just play multiple sites, play on Yahoo, play on FanDuel, play on DK, give yourself some opportunity to get some late night hammer exposure. But all in all, for me, it's mixing in RJ Barrett and Julius Randle against the Clippers, and maybe some Marcus Morris on the other side, and then just lots of Reggie Jackson on FanDuel. That's pretty much the entire game for me.
Reggie's PRA is 31.5, by the way. I went over that. It's only minus 106, too.
It's a big number. I mean, think about that.
That's a big number, but look at what he's been doing.
Oh, I know. Oh, I'm aware. It has been incredible. And I'm glad, because there's a lot of guys that I feel like I've missed out on the boat riding their Kyle Kuzma is the most obvious that comes to mind this season, where it's like, I've just been so slow to accept that this is who Kyle Kuzma is now. I didn't do that with Reggie Jackson. I just basically fired up as much as I humanly possibly could.
All right. And I'll leave you with this, my friend. It looks like a Garland over 31.5 PA, Jackson over 31.5 PRA. I'll get you plus 281.
Sounds nifty. We can do that.
Anything else you want to get out before we get out of here? You want to wish Jordan a happy Sunday evening?
Nah, not really. This was a lot of fun, guys. We've had a blast. Per usual, smash that like button, subscribe button, all of that. Yes. Check out the NBA Slate Starter podcast. I do that Sunday through Thursday night with Rinpack. We just love our loyal listeners. We have so many of you guys that hit us up. And, if you ever have questions, comments, concerns, anything, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up, leave those 5-star reviews on Apple, on Spotify, and all of those places. And best of luck tonight. Hopefully you got a little something here to take it home tonight.
8 Game, appreciate the super chat by all means. Also, nice to see News God get a shout there. He works very hard for us as well. And we'll see you all. Look, yeah, get these thumbs up, please, here before EMac and Terry come your way right now. No wonder why they're hanging here. You think that they just came in here to see you and your pretty face? These guys are hanging here because they got the show coming up, all right? That's Lindquist. I'm Shander. Jordan's not going anywhere. Neither are you. Live before lock right now.
right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on Sunday night, little NBA live before lock, joined by the one and only Terry McBride. That's T McB, Digital B21 out there on Twitter. I am at EMac DFS on Twitter. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM on Twitter, among the many Twitter handles we have. I see we're just about to 74,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which means we are going to be at 75,000 before you know it. And then 100,000 is in our sights. I'm sure Lofty will start doing his song and dance for that. But these are exciting numbers to reach. Terry, how are you doing, my friend? We only get to talk once a week now.
Well, only in front of people anyway. We,
yes.
We definitely banter in our little side chats and everything behind the scenes.
But we talk about the Dynasty League for 5 minutes, even though MLB hasn't started yet.
Crushing me. We should be so deep in fantasy baseball draft season and everything right now, and getting that league going. But yeah, hopefully soon enough they'll eventually just crush the players and move along with their lives. But yeah, that sucks. Feeling a little under the weather. Slept in this morning, got a bit of a scratchy throat. Lady friend came by the other day and she had one. So yada, yada, yada. I've got one today. That's keeping me under the weather a little, but yeah, happy to be here. Talk through this slate. Got like 50 lineups. I'm expecting this to completely fall apart during the course of the show because I currently have 5,000 sims run for 3,000 lineups and like everything set up perfectly. And so it's definitely all going to fall apart. I just don't know where it's coming from yet. So this should be a fun one.
Yeah, I've got my Yahoo lineup built. I'm set with that. They are the sponsor of our show. I have not done DraftKings yet. However, I've done all my NHL. All my showdown slates are in. So I just have main slate DraftKings, and the Fred VanVleet fan club filled up today. Rather quickly. I should have made it 100. We would have had a chance to talk about that more on the show. The rule is I have to play his direct backup as best we can tell. I think it's going to be Blanton, I think, at this point. No more Malachi Smith. So I'll play a couple Raptors just to cover the bases here, because technically Gary Trent Jr., even though he may play a little point guard tonight, he is already more often than not in the starting lineup. So the spirit of all of that is I'm supposed to take the raw end of the deal there. So no issues on that. And a reminder, you guys, only the special contests that I put in the title of said contest are the ones where I give away multiple tickets. And it's, you have to finish first with an Awesemo avatar in all of the others. I had a few people message me today and saying, hey, I was the first Awesemo avatar, but you didn't get first. So that's a key one. Don't worry. When VanVleet's healthy, we'll celebrate that by doing the top 5 Awesemo avatars or something fun. But today, and for the last 10 or so, it's been just Fred Van, just first place in that one. Are you ready for a story, Terry?
Sure. Always.
And it's going to be NBA related. This could be a little emotional, but it'll kick us off into the point guards. We'll talk point guards and guards. In general, we'll talk some forwards. We'll see if any news pops up. But I want to tell a little story here. And this story is about understanding context and biases. So most gamers, they think of the New York Knickerbockers as being this tough defensive-minded team that plays at a slow and deliberate pace. True, you are a New York Knickerbockers fan.
Indeed.
Do you remember back on January 15th when New York had won 3 consecutive games? They worked their way over 500. They were 22-21.
The salad days. What a great time.
In their last 20 games, they are 3-17. Okay, there's humor for some of us. There's some emotions for others of us. Ouch. And then in their last 15 games, they have the 6th worst defensive efficiency in the league, allowing 116 points per 100 possessions. That's a pretty sizable time frame. And then they're actually playing at a league average pace during that stretch. So, tonight, no Derrick Rose, no Kemba Walker, no as well, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, they're all out. Even if Taj Gibson makes his way back into the rotation, he's not going to stop the bleeding here. Yeah, Terry, is it Reggie Jackson or bust tonight? He's $30 on Yahoo.
I mean, you're talking about a number of the Knicks prime defenders that are out of the rotation, out for a fairly significant chunks of the season. It's just not the same team as it was last year. They're just not defensively oriented to the degree that they used to be. There's the argument that guys like Julius Randle have, somewhat given up on at least this season, which, to depending on which day you catch me on, I can agree with that a little bit more and a little bit less, but the New York Post has definitely been enthusiastic about it. But yeah, I think that's a spot you can target some of the Clippers guys going against the Knicks. I also think it's a spot based on the just extreme minutes Eric was talking about on the last show that you can target a couple of the Knicks. You can definitely target Barrett. You can definitely target the up and down Randall, but I think Evan Fournier is on the board at least at 5,000 on FanDuel at shooting guard and small forward. He's a little bit of a tougher ask on DK at 5,500 shooting guard only. He's coming up a little bit less optimal, but there are pieces over there that they're at least serviceable. And yeah, I definitely think that Jackson call is pretty good on the Yahoo slate there at 7,000 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DK. He's a bit of a different play. 7,000 on FanDuel. He's definitely interesting to me. 30% optimal, one of the higher end point guards on the board from the mid-range.
Yeah, well, I was looking at Randall quite a bit since you did bring him up. He's no longer allowed to score between 40 and 49 fantasy points. In his last 8 games, he's either gotten over 50 or below 40, and the last 4 have been in the below 40 bucket. The minutes are there, field goal attempts are down, but I think that's partly because RJ Barrett's been somewhat asserting himself a little bit more as well. I'm not concerned about Julius Randle. I think he's a reasonable option no matter what. It's just kind of been one of those stretches where he's been getting the points, but but the rebounds aren't there, or he's getting the rebounds, but then he doesn't take more than a dozen, or I guess 15 in this case, field goal attempts, right? So I think he's a decent play. He's 37 on Yahoo. I think he's reasonable there as well. So looking at some of the other guards that we have here on the board tonight, we of course have Ja Morant. There was a back-to-back last night. They ended up crushing, I can't at this point, I don't even remember who it was. Orlando, I think. But yeah, it's irrelevant because Ja played 28 minutes. Jaren Jackson Jr. played 25. Nobody else played more than 24. Not worried about the back-to-back. They're coming into Houston. Last I looked, they were favored by about a dozen points. But if you look at Jaren Jackson Jr., he's reasonably priced on a couple of the sites. You've got Ja Morant, while Spendy can put up points in a hurry. And then you've also got Desmond Bane, who seems a little more appealing among those 3, just from a point per dollar perspective. How are you feeling about Ja Morant tonight? We've got Darius Garland. I almost said Winston. I typed Winston Garland out 2 different times in the article today. But what do you like here with our other point guards?
Yeah, a big fan of Ja on both sites today. 10-3 on FanDuel, 10-5 on DK. I'm willing to pay that price, and I think it's easy enough to get to him in positionally. 36.4% optimal to lead the entire slate on FanDuel. 25.1% optimal on the DK slate puts him well in the mix. That makes him the 3rd highest option at any position in terms of the optimal lineup rate. And among the other stars, only Jokic is comparable at 12.6K on that slate. He's 19.3% optimal. So you're dropping by, roughly 6 optimal lineup percentage points for about 2,100 more by going to Jokic there if it's a heads up between the point guard and the center. And then looking down the board, the highest ranked player at above 9,000 in terms of optimal lineup rate is Pascal Siakam at 17.1% optimal. So Ja is just on a tier by himself in terms of the pay up options, particularly around the guard spot, but just on the board in general on DK. It's a lot tighter on FanDuel. A lot of the guys rank out similarly in like the high to mid 30s. A lot of these guys carrying significant positive leverage scores on FanDuel as well. Things are just really kind of opened up. There's a range between the top end and like the middle there on DK that's a little bit more defined on that slate than it is on FanDuel, where you just get more guys coming into more frequent optimal appearances.
All right. Let's see. I'm looking over here at Yahoo, just glancing at the guard position in general, seeing who else is up near the top here in the projections. We have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander coming in as our 2nd highest projected guard. We have Donovan Mitchell just a tick behind him. Those guys are squaring off in their game. You've got CJ McCollum a couple points behind them at 40 going into Denver, taking on the Nuggets. And then we already mentioned Garland and Reggie Jackson. You've got Brandon Ingram, Gary Trent. We hit on Bane, Kevin Porter. No Dennis Schroeder tonight. We were not this is not a surprise. He's been a little bit dinged up with an ankle issue. And then as you cruise all the way down to the bottom of the pricing sheet, you've got Delano Banton, you've got Monte Morris, Trent Forrest, etc. What do you like here as we move off the premier options? Although I guess technically SGA and Mitchell are still premier options tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SGA
they're just not the Bucks deluxe version,
right? And in terms of like raw scoring potential on this one, SGA is most definitely in the conversation. He's one of the most highly projected guards, one of the most highly projected players overall in terms of the median. But he makes a good illustration of what I was talking about around Ja. For 10-4 point guard only, 100 less than Ja, we're getting SGA in the optimal lineup 9.9% of the time compared to the 25.1% that we were finding Ja. it's just a different kind of a play for where Ja's been in terms of point per dollar, 1.3, or excuse me, point per minute, 1.38 versus SGA's 1.19 in the most three recent games. SGA is actually the slate leader in terms of point per minute based on the situational uptick. He's been at 1.60 over the last 3 games. So, I mean, he is a monster producer in the right situation. So for raw points, I think I want to get 2 additional shares of him on the DK slate, despite the fact that he drops in our optimal right there. And it doesn't really come through in the boom score either at his salary here. I just kind of want to book some additional shares of his just median projection in case he does have that upside night. There's a limited number of guys that can hit that like 60-point upside, and he's one of them. I think Darius Garland is also in that mix. You mentioned him in the wind up to the John Morant question. I kind of skipped over it. At 8,000 on FanDuel, he's a spectacular play, shooting guard and point guard eligible, 30+% optimal. At 8,600 point guard only on DK, he's the 5th most highly optimal player at any position, and one of the leading point guard plays. There are a lot of point guards with value on the DK slate, though. It's interesting. If you look at the top 5 by optimal lineup rate, you could conceivably roster Delano Banton for the min. You could put Ja Morant in the other guard spot, and then you could put Darius Garland in the util spot, and you're not spending all that much, and you're getting 3 of the 5 most frequently optimal players. One of them at a monster leverage score for the min price Banton, and then 2 of the top overall scorers, 2 of the top overall guards on the entire slate. I don't necessarily think that's a bad starting point for construction. You've also got guys like Trent Forrest, but he can be rostered in multiple spots, shooting guard and small forward eligible. You've got guys like Clarkson and Bane that can also be rostered in multiple spots. So you can book all 3 of those point guards in the point guard, and util spot, and then start building in some of those other players and build a really firmly optimal lineup with good boom score probability. And it gets you, you can build Jokic into that lineup. So I think there's a really interesting angle into the slate for DK based on those 3 guards being at the top of the board in terms of our optimal rate.
All right, everybody, I need you to hit the like button to celebrate Terry's happy week here. We've got 2,000 people watching. Come on, let's at least get us up to 500. Shouldn't be that hard. News God sent in a super chat here for you. If you didn't see it, it says, congrats on looking refreshed and relaxed, Terry. Not too bad. Not too bad. Family show here tonight. We are sponsored by Yahoo, of course. That's Yahoo Daily Fantasy. We've partnered with them for this NBA season to bring you some excellent offers. Check out our exclusive, and when I say limited time offer, I mean limited time. This one's starting to hit its expiration date, which is going to be soon, but you can get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, all you need to do is be a new Yahoo user on their DFS portion of their site. Sign up for an account through the link below us here in the description, deposit and play. That's all you got to do. Once you have gotten in there and played in a paid contest, Yahoo will send us your contact information. We in turn will send you a promo code that will get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content for free. That is all access to all Awesemo, all of the sites, DK, FanDuel, Prize Picks, etc., not just Yahoo. So that's a great deal. It's almost a $90 value. And then the other nice thing is you put in $10, Yahoo will give you $10 as well in site credit. So this is a win-win all the way around. Basically $100 offer for free if you're not already a member of Yahoo. I like playing on Yahoo. They have a reduced rake. Most of the larger sites, 15, 16% these days in the GPP. Yahoo generally between 10 and 12%. The other nice thing, while they don't always have overlay, there's oftentimes room in their contest. And the other unique wrinkle that they have is once they start games from whatever point it is, they go through the rest of the night. So their later slates generally end up being, the rest of the night. So it's a lot of fun. They don't carve out 2 and 3 game slates in the middle of the evening. Shooting guard,
we got to unwind that Banton news. We got our update in, and he is not in the starting. It looks like Scotty Barnes is going to be starting at the point, and Banton just fell off.
I thought that could happen today. Yeah. Now, technically, Scotty Barnes is already a starter, though, right? Who is new into the starting lineup? Because I'm going to need that. We're going to need to make it.
The only update I saw was that Nurse said that Scotty Barnes is starting playing point guard. I don't see the full starting lineup in here yet.
At least so technically, is that who I should play instead of I should be required to play for Fred VanVleet in the fan club?
Yeah, I would think as far as your Fred VanVleet rules, I mean, that's, it's not technically a backup like you said, but I mean, if he's going to be sliding into that role,
playing quite a bit out of position,
he's one of the top end play into lineups there against the people. I guess that's what you could do. I think we need to see what that starting lineup looks like.
We'll see who the other person is.
Yeah, but it looks like Banton did fall off the face of the earth though in our last update. So scratch what I was saying about him, but the other guy's still a spectacular foundation for a lineup build. Let me get this update in as you.
All right, I'll let you do that. Watanabe chat saying potential. These are all potentials. Boucher potentially. Birch. I think I think it's going to be Ken Birch, but
yeah, I was going to say Birch makes a lot of sense there.
We'll have to see what's going on. Well, now my Yahoo lineup
that kills me. The Banton thing was such pie in the sky too. We had him projected at 30 minutes earlier. He's played more than 20 minutes 5 times all year. I was going to get into it, and then I got confident that it was there all day.
Same thing with me. That's why I haven't built the DK lineups. I'll let the Yahoo one ride.
I don't want to.
I'm just playing one over there tonight, but we'll get that. We'll get that sorted out here. Oh, good times. Good times. All right, moving on to, let's see what else we have here. Let's see, they'll release it at 7:01. We will see if that is the case there. We will see. Looking at the time, we've got 40 minutes left. It is 70 degrees here. It was a nice one today, Terry, considering last weekend it barely got over 30. We have doubled that temperature here. I had a nice walk today. Shout out to my wife. Not one, but 2 10Ks. She did a double header, 2 different locations, and she got first in her age group.
That's awesome.
Yeah, not too bad. And she said, no, it was really first this time. There were actually other people in my age group that I beat. A lot of times if she goes to some of these oddball ones, they do like 45 to 50 or whatever. And she's she may sometimes the only one there because they only have a couple hundred runners. But this time, no, she said no.
There was a girl who qualified for the Olympics in the half pipe event. It was a skiing half pipe event. And she just like went up the side, gradually came back down the side, basically like what you would do if you were in a half pipe. But it was in the actual Olympics because she did it for a country that had, nobody competing. And she scoured the world for these different tournaments where nobody else was competing in that space. And she was able to qualify through doing that. So, I mean, congratulations on achieving your Olympic dream and, occupying a weird spot on TV for 5 minutes. But,
hashtag how rich.
I'm sure.
All right. Dan the man bringing us back to earth. He says, hey, you guys want to talk a little bit about the FanDuel guards tonight? I'm going to get over to FanDuel here. I'll upload the projections to that site. Terry, of course, that is technically his home site if we had to pick one and assign that role. We'll let's see what his thoughts are. Have you worked in your update to your tools yet or still addressing?
Well, I'm just going by the old boom bust here. That kind of feeds the backbone of my my dashboard here. And it does. So going to the guards on FanDuel real quick, in order of optimal lineup rate and frequency with which I'm getting to a lot of these guys, John Morant looks spectacular. Like we said, off the top at the most expensive end. From the mid-range, Reggie Jackson, Desmond Bane look very good. Both of those guys, not all that expensive. Bane, you get at shooting guard and small forward. So you get a little flexibility there. And then back to the kind of like upper mid-range, I really like Darius Garland on this slate. And I think Donovan Mitchell, CJ McCollum are both right in there in terms of mix and match. You can buy a little leverage if you're willing to roster an Evan Fournier. RJ Barrett doesn't really come with the same leverage, but he's a nice play, 21% optimal, just kind of efficiently owned on the slate. I think you could squeeze a little bit of value out of like a Gary Trent. There's upside, but not optimal rate or boom score probability in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just in terms of a guy who could go out there and put up 60 FanDuel points for you. So there's a pretty broad mix, and that doesn't even include a value guy like Trent Forrest, who I do like. We got him in the starting lineup a little while ago, only 12% optimal, nice little sneaky 17.42% boom score probability mark, puts him in the mix. He's getting ownership. He's negative 4.5 leverage, but I think you can do interesting things with that salary at that position, just based on the way things fall on FanDuel. So I wouldn't leave him out of the equation either.
All right. A couple of the guys down towards the bottom end here on FanDuel. Evan Fournier, I think, is reasonable. You're going to count on some points there, but he's coming in at 5K. You've got Jordan Clarkson. He's at 4,900. Likely to see a few more minutes. Someone had asked, is Mitchell out? No, it's not Mitchell. It's Mike Conley. They're not playing him on back-to-backs. The Utah Jazz do play again tomorrow, so they're preemptively sitting him for this one. We haven't really seen Nickeil Alexander-Walker get much. I think he's only played in 2, maybe 3 games total. And I think all combined, last I looked, it was like 20 or fewer minutes, like combined, not just in each game. He's having a hard time cracking the rotation there in Utah. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I would expect Jordan Clarkson to probably be the recipient of maybe, if not a few extra minutes, some extra shots with that. Okay, so
I can't figure out what's going on with Banton. I have to assume we're still running our new sim, but it updated 12 minutes ago at this point. And we've got him at 14 minutes on a median projection of 11.6 DK points, but still coming up 30.8% optimal. So I'm assuming that's going to change, but based on the fact that he's dead minimum, I mean, there's no way you can play that, right? 3,000, even at the dead minimum, 11.6 median points.
No,
I mean, that's just gambling on the fact that on him going from 14 to like 25, 26 minutes. I think that optimal rate needs updating. Hopefully somebody in the sound of my voice can get on updating that sim, because it usually doesn't take that long.
Right. I would think even at the minimum on tonight, we really need him to project for about, I'm just thinking DK points, about 17 DK points.
Yeah. I want like 17, 18 before I'm even going to consider anybody.
Yeah.
And particularly with just a 14-minute projection now, it's
right.
Yeah. And you're talking about a guy who's a 16.8% usage guy, 0.81 fantasy points per minute for the season. Like, there's not a lot to be squeezed out there. And like I said earlier, he's only played more than 20 minutes 5 times all season. So it's just a weird one, the way it's sitting on the board right now. So take the optimal rates with a grain of salt for the moment, guys. We'll see whether that gets updated in the next little bit.
All right. I see we got in the Discord here. We had a question from Obi. Bain and Clarkson, are they good plays on FanDuel? I believe they both are. I would prefer Bain. I believe he's a little more expensive, but a better environment there. Clarkson would be not too far behind him, but if we had to choose one of them to get over 35 fantasy points, just an arbitrary cutoff, if it was going to be over 40, I would pick Bain, but I think each of them has 35 in play, and I would still think Bain would outproduce Clarkson 2 out of 3 times, would be my guess.
Yeah, I was getting to more Bain. He's the more popular of the two, but if you look at the leverage score, Clarkson is actually at the worst leverage score. He's 22% optimal, 30% on, negative 8.3 leverage, where Garland, you're getting 32% optimal. And, wait a minute, hold on. Who was the other side? Bain was the other side of that equation. He's right above Garland. My eyes skipped. I was like, wait a minute, Garland's positively leveraged. Yet another reason I like Darius Garland.
Yeah, I don't think Bain, it's an either or. I think it's just,
Bain
are they
negatively? Yeah. Bain negatively leveraged at a 3.1, but a better play at 33.5% optimal. But yeah, they're both on the board firmly for the FanDuel slate. No doubt about it.
All right. Bean Dude, howdy, my friend. I see he is joining us today. That is always fun. We go, hey, we got over 500 likes. Let's get over 600 now. We're up to 2,200 people watching. This is fun on a Sunday. That's a pretty big number here. So that is something we should celebrate. All right, Terry, back making our another foray into the forwards here. Pascal Siakam. To wrap up with Blanton, if he's going to be that low in his projections, I think you don't want to go there, much like I don't really want to go to a Will Barton and Aaron Gordon, et cetera. Those guys get minutes, but they just seem empty more often than not. So they're just been, or disappointing, should we say. And that's mainly a function of so much usage going to Jokic there. Would you be okay fading Bain in GPPs, given that any one of Ja, Triple J, or Adams can have their own ceiling game at Bain's expense? I don't think Adam would have a ceiling game at Bain's expense. He doesn't shoot enough. If he shoots 10 times and, if he gets a double-double or a 15-12 game, that's going to be how Adams gets there. Maybe a couple blocks and steals. I don't think Triple J is directly competing with him, and I really don't think Ja is as well. Now, could all those guys, could they shoot 60% in the first half and everybody's minutes get curtailed? You betcha. But that's a different story than one of them taking directly from Bane. In this,
but I also, especially for GPPs, I definitely don't think that Bane is like a must roster in every one of your lineups, lock kind of a play. He's a very nice piece on this slate, but he is negatively leveraged. He's 36.6% owned. He's the highest owned guy that I can see on the FanDuel board entirely right now. He's a nice piece, and he does help make things work at 5,600 with his positional flexibility. But there are other guys who you can, kind of make, you can approximate that value from, whether it's an Evan Fournier at the same positioning at 5,000, whether it's an Alec Burks from the same ugly, god-awful team, whether it's a Kevin Porter for a little bit more with similar positioning. There are alternate pieces where Bane is a nice piece. He helps a lot of things. He's going to be in a ton of my lineups, but he's definitely not mandatory tonight.
All right. All the Awesemo people are congratulating you today, Terry. One Jordan Klein would like to say congrats on the Strange. There you go. There you go. I think this might be someone you're somewhat familiar with.
You guys are making a leap. Yeah, you guys are making a bit of a leap, unfortunately, but
no swiping right or left for T McB. He's got a stable of ladies that make breakfast for him from time to time.
Yeah, it's a regular first couple minutes of Coming to America over here.
Must not comment further with quotes from that movie. So, forwards. Let's move forward. Let's get there. Okay, we've got Pascal Siakam. Just sort of been disappointing recently. Finally had a good game. We have not seen his recent assist numbers tick up as much as they normally do when Van Vliet is out. Competent games, but he, scored over 40 fantasy points. Let's see, twice in his last 11 games. That's not good. And he looks like, just eyeballing it, he's probably averaging about 37 minutes per game in that stretch. Those aren't great numbers. It's not really getting rebounds, which is kind of the oddity. He has double-digit rebound games just 3 times in that stretch. So we'll have to see what happens there. That said, he is 8,100 on FanDuel. I think that's appropriate. I want to say he's 36 on Yahoo. Do you like Siakam tonight? We hit a little bit on Julius Randle, but how would Siakam compare with Randle or Wood or Scotty Barnes? And now we're into the mishmash of multi-position eligibility across everything. Jared Allen, technically a power. I guess technically he is kind of a power forward.
Yeah,
close enough. Yeah, close enough. Isaiah Roby, who I believe is starting. There's some options here. We're going to the bigs straight across the board. Jokic will be his own category.
All right. I like it. Siakam is interesting. He's a different play from site to site. He's 8,100 at the power forward on FanDuel. It makes him one of the most frequently optimal players at any position on the entire slate. He's super popular. He should be a part of a lot of people's plans over there, and rightfully so. At that price, 1.13 fantasy points per minute that he's put up over the course of the season is perfectly fine. He's only been 1.05 over the last 3 games in 39.3 minutes a night. Based on who he is, what he does on the court in most situations, and the monster minutes that we can always expect, the positional absences around him, I expect a nice big game out of Siakam here. So happy to go back to him at that price. At 9,400 power forward and center eligible on the DK slate, he's still really frequently optimal, and you get the benefit that not a lot of the field is going to him. So only 12.1% owned, 15+% optimal, creates a little positive leverage situation. It's tricky to get to at that salary. I mean, he's easier to build into a lineup in terms of the raw cost than like a Jokic for 12,000 and change, but you're not getting the exact production similarity there. But I do think he's a nice piece where you can get to him and where you can build around a lineup with a lot of these values to include that mark for him, particularly if you can get him at the forward spot and leave room for a different center play. So I like him there. I think he's more leverage piece, mix and match kind of a guy there, where he's kind of a foundational piece, even at heavy ownership on the FanDuel slate. So bit of a different play across sites, but very, very much in play on both for me.
Oh, Jordan, I'm going to say it for both of us. Terry's really into a nice piece. That's just really what it comes down to. That was your word of the minute, man. You were rolling that one out there a few times. So it's good. We got the subtext. We got Awesome Yo in chat. We've got all sorts of fun here. Let's have some fun on a Sunday night. Let's it's our last hurrah before we start the work week. One other last hurrah you can get is you want to get behind the paywall here at Awesemo. You can get access to all the content and tools for nearly every DFS sport out there with the Awesemo weekly pass. It's $29.95. That includes full access to everything, all the premium content, all the tools on Awesemo, the ownership projections, boom bust, lineup builder for all the sports, so much more. Of course, if you want to get in just for the NBA, we got weekly packages as low as $4.95. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on, but it can be easily combined with any of these packages at checkout. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo today.
There you go.
Anybody else as we cruise down the forward list here, and then I'm going to go back and look at DK and see who we missed. We've got the Baisleys, the Kevin Porter Jr., small forward point guard. I guess that's fair technically. I kind of like him with no Dennis Schroeder tonight. Who knows what his motivational level is going to be? I don't think he knows at this point in time. We'll have to see what happens when he rolls out there. We also have Jackson Hayes. Bit of a dud in the last game against Utah, but he is someone that kind of gets by on rebounds and hustle helper stats, not so much the scoring. He generally takes that literally a handful of shots per game. I do like him a little bit better in this matchup tonight. I think he's an okay option. Anything else as we're scraping the bottom of the barrel?
We talk about Triple J yet? Off the top of the board?
We've hit on him a couple times, but go ahead and speak to him, my friend. I mean, he's stayed out of foul trouble recently, but the minutes have not been bestowed upon him as they normally are. Of course, his team's been crushing the opposition. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Cause does not always equal causation. I said that wrong, didn't I? What is that platitude? Idiom?
That just went in like 14 different directions. I wanted to talk.
I'm starting to upload my stuff.
You went with almost a Lindquist style pronunciation of the word foul there too. Foul really stretched out the middle of that in
foul.
There.
Foul. I think I say it correct.
You usually do, but that time it kind of elongated.
Tournament. Say tournament.
Tournament.
Okay. Why don't you say it like the rest of the East Coast folks?
Tournament.
Why does Ehrenberg say it differently?
I'm looking forward to the NCAA tournament.
That's what, yeah, exactly.
How does Greg say?
Tournament.
He hits tournament. The OU. It's TERNEMENT. Tournament. Anywho,
all right.
If you're playing in NBA DFS tournaments tonight, Jaren Jackson Jr. I think looks pretty good on both sites. We're targeting that game as the highest overall total on the board by a pretty wide margin, and it's just going to be a wide open scoring fest. I think in Houston, a lot of pace in that game, a lot of different spots you can go, but I definitely think he should be on the board. He's positively leveraged on both sites. Nice little bit of room between his optimal rates and his ownership. Not really properly priced. He's one of the leaders for boom score probability on both sites. If he stays out of foulable trouble as the game goes on, he's going to be a top end play today. So I definitely want to have some Triple J in my life.
All right, let's look at some of the just pure centers here. Jokic at the top. We've got Gobert, Jonas Valanciunas we didn't mention. You've got Mitchell Robinson. You've got Zubac and Hartenstein out there. Şengün. Most sites he's a center. It looks like he does have power forward eligibility. He's an intriguing option there, sticking with the Memphis Houston connection here. As you move down the rest of the pivot position, top to bottom, throw out a few observations. Poor flavor.
Memphis Houston connection just sounds like it would be big in either drug smuggling or rodeo or something.
You didn't like my pronunciation? Poor flavor. I don't think Grandma would be happy with me. I need to work on that.
That's one step short of just putting a vowel at the end of every word and pretending like that's Spanish.
El Smoco, El Drinko, El No Fumaro.
So yeah, Şengün, he's in play. He's 8.5% optimal on the FanDuel slate, 4,200 on the DK slate though. that puts him in play pretty firmly. 16.6% optimal among the forwards and centers on the board here. We're sorted by forward. So among forwards, he's like the, call it 7th most frequently optimal player over there, and a nice little boom score probability. It's only a 23.3 point median projection, but as a point per dollar kind of a play, he compares with a lot of the top end guys on the board. He's 1.16 fantasy point per minute player over the last 3 games in 20.7 minutes a night, 1.32. That's a pretty strong play for only 4,200. So assuming a handful of minutes there for Şengün in a wide open game, I don't dislike that. And I think he's a little sneaky. So I don't hate getting there at all.
All right. I'm going to type it out. I'm going to say it. Hutch Boy. I haven't seen Hutch Boy in a while. He's still crushing those 3-mans. I'm sure on the various sides. It's a long time. How much
Trent Forrest are you getting on the DK slate?
It's going to be a lot now that Blanton is out. So
yeah, I think that replaces that value. It looks like it does on our board pretty much. 3,100 shooting guard and small forward eligible, so you can put him in 5 different spots. He's drawing the appropriate ownership for his 21% optimal rate. He's at 27% ownership, so he's a negative leverage play, but I think he's just one of those fundamental little pieces that makes everything work, and you can move him around to so many spots on the board that he's just got a ton of value there. Now that we're projecting him out to 28.2 minutes, I like that play a lot. I think he's one of your more fundamental value pieces now.
All right. For David Castillo, Jaren Jackson Jr. I usually say Jaren Jackson. I don't always say Jaren Jackson Jr. Every now and then it's fun to say Triple J. But there is really only one Triple J. That was JJ Jackson, original MTV VJ. But none of you guys know who he is. R.I.P. Triple J. R.I.P.
So you were in there Triple J in the World Wrestling Entertainment Arena? Oh, no, it's Triple D, Diamond Dallas Page, right?
DDP.
No, that's DDP. There's a Triple J in there.
Triple H.
Triple H. Yeah.
Hunter.
Right. Yeah. One of the most famous wrestlers of all time. Yeah. Let's move on.
Might be married to the founder's daughter or something.
I did hear somebody in the NBA, it might have been Jaren Jackson Jr., was made a comment one time, and I tried to take it to heart a little bit. He wasn't commenting at us by any means, but he said, there's a junior on my name for a reason, and that is my name, and it's honoring my dad. So, I kind of I started trying to hit those a little bit harder, the juniors, the thirds, and whatnot, because, that is part of his name. Like you said, it's there for a reason. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is a good play tonight.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like the alliteration. Jaren Jackson Jr., Triple J.
I love it.
You get a lot of solid ones. Did you know? Oh, okay. Before Reggie Jackson, do you know his nicknames?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Well, Mr. October, of course. He played for the Yankees. Come on.
You are the straw that stirs the drink on this show, my friend.
Yeah. So as I can't type basketball reference in, so I know they call him Mr. June as a joke, but he had one other one that I and now I've gotten to baseball reference. This is beautiful. This is just
serves you right.
He's like called the Corporation or something like that.
Okay. Rjax, I can see. Yeah, I don't know. Where are we getting the Corporation from?
I'm getting it off of his basketball ref. Oh, Big Government. Big Government.
Okay.
The hell?
For what reason?
I have no idea. I was going to ask you. I get the Big Burrito because, that would be Marc Gasol, and it's a foolish nickname, but I get that. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I get this one. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know enough about him and his beliefs one way or the other, or was he a player who ever took a deal with a team for tax reasons or anything?
I have the answer.
All right, what's the answer, Jordan?
The answer to the Reggie Jackson is because he's always bailing us out, so he's a big government.
Okay. I see what they did there. All right, I'll take it. That's not bad. Somebody put some thought into that one.
All right. Olrat14 says, love my team. I need 3,300 DK utility. He's going with Forrest right now.
Yeah, I think that's the move. You just swallow the ownership. You don't even sweat it at that point. He just makes everything else work for you. 3,100. If we go, let me pull up the rest of the DK board. Ignoring Banton, who I haven't gotten our most recent update. Hopefully clean that up. It's Forrest. There's nobody in range that's in the 3,000s. 3,900. Chris Boucher is the next highest guy at 10.9% optimal compared to Trent Forrest at 21.1% optimal. It's just not even a contest. It's Forrest for sure.
Thank you, News God. Look at this. What an amazing guy. Tells us to check our Slacks because he knows we're not getting that message. Isaiah Roby, back soreness, late scratch tonight.
Oh, interesting. All right.
That I don't know that. Well, one, it takes him out of our player pool for sure.
Right.
Because I thought he was an intriguing option at this point. I guess Spacely and Pokusevski get a little bit more opportunity by default.
I was
Aaron
not
Wiggins.
getting too much Roby to begin with, but yeah, I think those would be the primary beneficiaries. Spacely was the guy I was getting to a little bit anyway. So I just kind of like that for an uptick for him. I doubt that I have any Poku in here who could maybe see a little bit of a value uptick. What's his?
So those two are
53 though for Poku on FanDuel, 53 on DK.
Yahoo, really they're in that $15-16 range. I can't remember if they're both 16 or one of them is 14. Forward's a little bit thin tonight in that particular range, so they're both going to stand out. You could look at RJ Barrett, I believe is 29. But if you're starting to, there's no real good cheapy forwards on Yahoo tonight. But I was looking at both those guys as sort of a last man in situation on one of my lineup configurations.
Yeah, I think that makes sense at those prices. Poku just kind of priced out, I think, for me. I don't know that he's going to gain the upside. We had him at 23.5 minutes. Does he gain enough upside to pay off the jump from 2.1% optimal, 2.5% optimal from site to site at 5,300 into relevance when he's already negatively leveraged? His ownership will go up right along with it. So I don't really see going out of my way to change anything for Poku here. On the Yahoo slate, I do agree with you at that price, though.
All right. And then Karis LeVert and Rajon Rondo confirmed out about 10, 15 minutes ago. We were guessing on that. They've missed. This will now be their 6th and 5th games, respectively, missed in that one. Just going back, I was going to say Winston again. Going back to Darius Garland, Winston's offspring. You have he missed 5 of his last 13 games, I think it was, but he has played his last 2. I want to say 4 and 43 minutes. So I think he's moved beyond whatever back issue he has had. That could pop up at any given time, but it seems that since 48 hours since the last game, and both those games were every other day. So I think he's moved beyond that at this point, but that's something if he always does, what do you do in basketball? Well, you run, you jump, you make sudden movements. What doesn't like that? You're back. So that could happen, be an issue at any given time. Aaron Wiggins, I believe, is starting. He is also a super discount dandy. I had pulled him out of my player pool because I was making my early showdown lineups. I think he was 2,000 on DK showdown. Let it ride. I'm not going to worry about putting him in my lineups there, but he becomes a potential pivot away from Trent Forrest. But this is the old Ben Rossa. You need 2 things to go right. You need Forrest to both play poorly, and then you need Aaron Wiggins to do something, which isn't always the case, unfortunately. So just looking, we have him for 21 fantasy points, but in his last 2 games with more than 20. Okay, I'm just going to read this real quick. 31 minutes, 13 DK points, 21 minutes, 17 DK points, 30 minutes, 14 DK points, 34 minutes, 12 DK points.
And those are
just kind of like Blanton or Banton.
Yeah, that is not a lot of production there for that much playing time. So yeah, I still lean the other way in the Forrest comparison.
All right, and then Banton, it looks like we've cleaned it up and have him at still the 12 points per our latest upload. So I feel he is not worth playing.
But where is he in terms of our probably? I'm reloading the page now, so let me look.
I don't have the Boom Bust open. I have too many other things slowing down my computer right now. And yes, Jordan, I am plugged in to my router.
Yeah, we did clean it up. Yeah, as suspected, that ridiculous drop in projection down to 11.56 DK points now has him 1.4% optimal on the DraftKings slate and completely off the board.
And we have Banton. But I keep trying to do Blanton. Banton he's 1/10 of 1% owned. Yikes! I should probably go tweak my Yahoo lineup. That's pretty bad. What else you got here with 31 minutes? 31. How am I dyslexic on telling time? I have no idea. 13 minutes to go. Good God.
I
do one show a week, and it's like I've completely forgotten how to do this. I do training for 2,000 people at my day job company, and I'm having trouble talking in front of an audience of just over 2,100. So please do hit that like button.
Solid crowd. Yeah, I just uploaded some lineups. I'm only playing 50 tonight on the FanDuel slate. Pretty happy with where I'm at, unless we get news that Jokic doesn't go, which would be a giant pain in the ass. But yeah, otherwise pretty happy. It's largely made up of mostly the guys we talked about here. I do need to make a couple changes because it did look like 2 or 3 little old construction Banton lineups crept through. So let me get those out of here.
So I have one. I can play a $10 player on Yahoo. Banton, Wiggins, or please God, is there anybody else?
I mean, at this point, that's got to be Wiggins on playing time alone, right? You got him projected 22 minutes.
I'm thinking Banton.
14 minutes versus 22 minutes?
Because I where are the error bars on that?
I mean, yeah, look, if you play him and he gets his 20 and change minutes, which isn't totally out of the question, right? There is the chance that he gets out there for a few rotations, somebody gets in foul trouble, any number of things could happen to result in getting those
Thaddeus
minutes.
Young is a better option. We haven't. That's a better way to go. 3 points. So this is working through the issue. I can play him. I've got Jokic in. This solves 2 things. I can now move Jokic to utility. And then I can, I'm going to move Thaddeus Young. Even if Young doesn't start, I'm perfectly fine with playing him because all I need is 20 minutes. And I'm hoping he gets a couple blocks and steals because those, of course, are worth 3 on our sponsor, Yahoo, tonight. Yeah, that's there we go.
The right call there.
Problem solved. And I already had Forrest in this lineup. So he's shooting guard. So
yeah, and 20 minutes is right where we've got Thad projected. And you're talking about a guy who's a 1.09 fantasy points per minute player this season, 0.92 over the last 3 games, versus a guy versus guys who are far less productive than that. I just lost track of where they landed on my board. Banton at 0.81 for the season, 0.66 over the last 3 games. There's just no comparison. And then Wiggins for the season is a 0.66 fantasy points per minute player. I mean, just atrociously bad, like you were going through there before. So yeah, Thad, even if he doesn't get a ton of playing time, is just a better choice there.
All right. Are you uploading your lineups?
I'm good. I can.
Okay. I'm going to answer one question here and then I'm going to go into scramble mode. So they're saying, how do we super chat here? Gobert against a non-existent Thunder front court. Now I do want to point out that Utah does play tomorrow. But I think we could, and the downside with Gobert is he doesn't take field goal attempts. In the last game, he took 4 against Houston. He had 14 against Phoenix. He had 13 against Dallas, 6, the Lakers, 3, and then Houston, 8. In those games, it looks like he averaged, let's call it 28 minutes. That's going to be your risk. He's going to get the 10 boards. I think he's still leading the league in boards, or he's top 3, approaching 13 or 14 per game. It's been a couple weeks since I looked at that. So that part I'm not worried about. The blocks I'm also not worried about. Of course, is the Stifle Tower 3-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year. It's the points. The points could be tricky in all situations with Gobert. You could have 3 dunks on the first 3 possessions. He could have 3 field goal attempts at halftime. That's the variable.
Yeah, that's typically where we're getting to Rudy Gobert. Which site was that for? DK or FanDuel, you know?
It was.
I mean, he's on the board for both. No site given. All right. Yeah. So he's on the board for both, right? He's an 18% optimal play on FanDuel. He's a 14% optimal play on the DK slate. He's priced for this matchup. It's not, he's priced and he's projected for the spot that he's in. There's nothing that's really creating a situation where it's not likely for him to come out. We've got him at a 41.2 median FanDuel score, a 40.2 DK score with 18% probability of cracking through that to like a 5x plus 10. There is some upside, but is Rudy Gobert likely to come out here and put up a mandatory 65-point game, dramatically outpacing Nikola Jokic? I don't necessarily think so. I think he's perfectly fine, worth some tournament shares, but I'm not really looking to press beyond the field's like 18 to 20% ownership on him on the slate. He's fine. He could be in the winning lineup easily. The probability marks bear it out, but he's not my favorite center. There are other players in the position that I like. Most specifically, I want to get to Nikola Jokic as much as possible.
And I would think a great game for him would be anything over 45. And I just don't. Tonight, I think that's maybe a 1 in 5 outcome because they're probably not going to need him to do that. Okay, I have a new way to sneeze now that Jordan Klein just showed me.
I was not paying attention.
Achoo! It's the dab sneeze. Achoo! If only I could screen capture that. That's better than you sitting by the lion, looking over your shoulder. Screen capture that I have of you. This is only amusing 2 people, me and Jordan, but it's worth it.
Good times. Now watching that whole thing come together.
Yep, I'm gonna watch Chad. We're hitting the sneeze right about now, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to say. This is a good moment. This is where we need producer cam all the time, man, all the time. Just
seriously,
no reason.
Although I love producer cam, but I also still like the idea of just the Baba Booey voice box with the from the old Stern show.
It's solid. It's solid. All right, I'm going to download my lineups. If you're playing NHL, all the expected projected starters at goalie are the ones starting for the 7:00 games. Sent me to maybe 10 people watching, but I use the Awesemo NBA tools and I have eked out about a 20% profit over the last 3 years or 20% ROI in NHL. Just saying.
How much Chris Boucher you got in your life tonight on
I have no I ran without caps and he's coming in at 80%.
Okay, yeah, that'll do it because I was going to say
I am now quickly adjusting caps to 70% and he's hitting 70. So
he came up before, but he is, as of the most recent updates, he is now the top of the board in terms of our optimal lineup rate. So definitely a guy you want to try and grab some shares of. 3,900 over there, 4,000 on the FanDuel slate with multi-position eligibility. Positive leverage as of right now on both sites. So definitely want to try and grab some additional Chris Boucher shares here in the next couple of minutes.
And I just realized I did all of my lineups there in Yahoo when I'm playing on DraftKings. I had two Cruncher tabs open. Now we're going to have a true sprint to the finish here because I'm going to have to clear out all my settings because it's not running these. All right, Terry, this is going to be a fun one here because 1, it's only money, and 2, this makes the show interesting when I scramble because, why not? So let's see. I probably should set, this is a good quick thought exercise. I'm going to set 260 as a minimum points rule here. I'm just going to run 25 lineups unencumbered and see what happens here. Oh, I don't even have projections in here. That's not good either. So let's do that. Let's upload. So when you're in a scramble and there are 2 games starting at 7:00 tonight. So this is one where I do not want to miss out on that. So just out of curiosity here, I'm going, I see what had happened. So I was running with the 270 cap minimum floor on my lineups, and that was fine for Yahoo, but not for DraftKings, the way things are working out. So I am going to come in and set a 255 cap, which it looks like that will be will appropriately get me mostly competent lineups. It looks like somewhere between 270 is the optimal from that standpoint. And this way, all I want is a fighting chance at this point, because as we've seen time and time again, Terry, as long as luck is on your side, do you really need to be good? Super chat here. I will let you answer this. It is a 2v2. Oh, it's a 3v3. Fournier, Trent, and Bain.
Okay.
Burks, Baisley, and Kevin Porter Jr. I would go with the second
one now. Yeah. Based on Nairobi and a little bit of an uptick for Baisley there. We're getting him a little bit already anyway. I think I like that second one a little bit better. That's actually a pretty close 3v3. I might want to put them side by side, take a look at the leverage scores, the ownership, and just like the raw ownership. But that's pretty close. So I don't dislike either side of it. I think you're fine either way.
All right. So we've got 3 minutes left. I now have 93 lineups. 93 lineups. Let's do 7 more. That feels like a good number. Get us to 100, and then I will upload these because, life happens. What do you got for
the Toronto game? 7:30. All right. So I can worry about these two.
Yeah, so you can kind of re-maneuver things a little bit for that, for the starting lineup. But 2 of our games do start at 7.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to make sure of. I just dropped them back into Cruncher via. That's a neat little way to go about doing some of these changes too. Is you can use the late swaptimizer, just put the min salary spend at like $10 million or whatever, and then it'll just once you hit swaptimize, it will bring all your lineups that you've entered back unchanged for you, and you can kind of look at the lineup card here and make some of those swaps. So like on this one, I'm trying to find ones where I might have those accidental Blanton shares and enough salary to get to Chris Boucher, but it doesn't look like that works out so easily. So that's going to be a pain in the neck. What I need to hope for is that I'm not locking too many of these spots because there's a lot of Memphis in here. I just need enough maneuverability once to get out of that position, which it looks like we'll be fine with. So,
all right. So I got my stuff uploaded. So I see chat saying riveting. Hey, a lot of people, when we have these moments, and I like seeing what happens with Josh occasionally when he is on the live before logs, with Eric Lindquist, with Greg, how they handle this, like these oh crap moments. Now, a lot of times you guys will just see me, especially when I'm on a show, I won't play that. If there's only one game tonight, I would have just said, you know what, not going to do it. But we've got 40% of our slate going here. There's players I want from both games. Plays. I can't do the avoid, but a lot of people ask me, hey, what do you do in these panic situations? Well, 1, you need to be prepared for them. 2, I did all my lineups and everything offline, but I did them in Yahoo instead of DraftKings. So you just saw quickly, I just want a fighting chance tonight. So, I set a minimum floor. I opened up the projections and I just said, lady luck be a lady tonight, as they would say in Guys and Dolls, and we'll see what happens. And sometimes that's the best
Venn diagram. The Venn diagram between our fans and Guys and Dolls fans is it's gigantic. It's way bigger than you expect. So I'm sure a lot of people know that reference.
Have you seen Guys and Dolls?
I actually haven't. I've seen a pretty good number of Broadway shows in my time, but that is one I actually haven't seen.
It's the movie is solid, but the Broadway show is better. I've seen it. I've never seen a show on Broadway, but I've seen 2 local theater groups, and I've seen it at like an actual touring company doing it, but not on Broadway.
Okay. Yeah, you guys got to get up here and hit the Broadway show.
Be a lady tonight. It's a good movie.
I'll meet you guys for dinner. We can go to some touristy spot in like the Times Square Restaurant Row area. Then you guys go off, you go see your show, and then we'll meet up again later for drinks.
There we go. Josh Watson Lewis made my day. He says, nice Guys and Dolls reference. Yes. That means there's 3 of us that have at least knew what I was saying there. Good times.
Good stuff. But hey, to your point, I mean, to me, as somebody who came from, I used to only be a subscriber and watch these shows, and like I learned so much that I didn't know about, like how to go about these things, how to think about these changes, how to make these swaps, where it's, things that I was trying to do on the fly on my own, and, learning a process, that's a fundamental part of this. So you can listen and be entertained by the show. You can listen and get us analyzing the information that is a click away from you being able to analyze it on your own if you're a subscriber at the site. Like when I'm looking at the Boom Bust tool, I'm looking at the same data that you guys have access to. I'm just trying to analyze it in a hurry. But when we get into the nitty gritty of talking about like the fundamental mechanics of building a lineup, what's important when you're thinking through those last minute swaps, what's important when a guy comes off the board, goes on the board, like those are the mechanics that you really want to focus on and want to learn about. So to me, that's stuff that's, kind of the heart and the meat of these shows. So it might not be the most exciting stuff, but it's definitely important. So it's stuff that should be focused on when it comes up.
Yeah, Jamie Moore says, watch 5 minutes, and we'll get out of here because I know Jordan's had a long day in just a sec here. Jamie Moore says, watch 5 minutes of West Side Story last night and remembers that he hates musicals. There are some that are just nails on a chalkboard. There are others that are fun. And it's in everybody's tastes in those vary dramatically from that. Like if you're looking at, like, I kind of like West Side Story just because it's, if you know the whole offshoot of it being the Romeo and Juliet, basically, etc. I haven't seen the new one, but the, you know, the Sharks and the Jets and the, you know, it's kind of, it's fun. Yeah, it's just kind of fun. But there are some that are just nails on a chalkboard.
Look, I mean, it's a changing industry too. Like if for people who don't like the old school, you know, Guys and Dolls kind of thing or West Side Story kind of thing, check out what Lin-Manuel Miranda and people who write like him are doing.
Yeah.
Like there is some exciting, you know, interesting stuff going on in that world. So yeah, it's a good space.
All right, we got 1,500 left. Hit that like button on the way out. Get us to 700. This was a good show. Thank you to Terry for hopping on. Thanks to the other guys for warming this up for all of us. And of course, shout out to one Jordan Klein, who now taught me the proper way to protect others when I sneeze. With that, gamers, good luck.